Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Witness and I'm your host Katrina Hussain. Today we cast an eye on Pakistan's foreign policy and whether it is running into troubled waters. Indeed, our relationship with the United States has been worsening steadily since the May 2nd debacle, which it resulted in the killing of Osama bin Laden by US SEALs. Now, even before then, Pakistan and the United States were not seeing eye to eye on several issues pertaining to the war on terror. But now relations seem to have plunged to a new low after the United States said that it was going to cut off or at least reduce coalition support funds, which has been one of the mainstays of the Pakistan forces fighting the war on terror and at the same time keeping up a full defensive posture against India. And for those who would say that Pakistan has nothing to fear from India, well, possibly you need to think again. Because Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh yesterday told a group of editors and journalists in India that Pakistan should leave Kashmir alone. Pakistan has enough internal problems to worry about, and his advice to us was that we should stay out of Kashmir. Well, what exactly did he mean by that? This is an issue on which Pakistan and India have gone to war. This is an issue on which exists 2 United Nations resolutions. This is an issue that is not bilateral between Pakistan and India, but involves a third party. Anybody remember them? The Kashmiris themselves. So the problem with this whole scenario is that every time when it looks like Pakistan can focus on dealing with the massive problems facing it on the western border, our eastern border seems to flare up again. I'm not saying that the border has flared up, but Dr. Manmohan Singh's words are hardly going to be of any comfort to policymakers in Islamabad and at GHQ. The military makes no secret of the fact that it is India-centric. Pakistan also maintains that its foreign policy is meant to be friendly with all neighbors, but to resolve core issues, including those of Kashmir, Siachen, Sir Creek, water, and many other issues. The foreign secretaries of India and Pakistan met in Islamabad last week, but nothing major came of those talks. I guess nothing was expected to. But what is Pakistan really doing regarding foreign policy? Is everybody just quarreling with us, or is there something wrong with our policy itself? That's the question for today, and allow me to introduce my guests in the studio. My first guest, Senator retired Muhammad Anwar Beg, Senior Political Leader, People's Party. My second guest today, Air Vice Marshal retired Shehzad Chaudhry, a defense analyst and a columnist. And my third guest today, Mr. Imtiaz Gul, a journalist and author, political analyst. Thank you all for joining me here on today's program. And Senator, Dr. Manmohan Singh's statement, what was it? What was it?
Katrina, I think if you track down the Indian media and the Indian politics going on, over the last 1 year or so, the Congress party has been in the midst of major corruption scandals. And the scandals are of such big heights that you can't even dream about it in Pakistan. 2,000 crores, 3,000 crores. I mean, that's the kind of corruption going on.
They've got a lot of money there too.
Now, I think, and then in the recent weeks, there was allegations against Manmohan saying that he's a lame duck. Then they said that he's shy to come before the media. So I think they decided a couple of days ago that he'll appear before the media, but print media, not electronic.
Yeah, there were editors and editors.
I personally feel the statement which has appeared in our media today that Pakistan should forget Kashmir, I think this is a political statement to divert the local issues which he has on his hands. I mean, you know that just last week the Indian Foreign Secretary was here. Kashmir was on the agenda. It was discussed. I mean, obviously we don't expect results in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, but at least it was on the agenda. And Manmohan Singh saying 2 days ago or last night that Kashmir, Pakistan should forget it. I think it's a political statement for the consumption
also,
of
okay,
his local audience.
Look at the context in which he said it. His statement was, Pakistan should leave Kashmir alone. It has enough of its internal problems to worry about.
Well, the point is this, Katrina, that Kashmir is the core issue as far as Pakistan is concerned, and I think even India is aware of it. And I personally think that until and unless the Kashmir issue is not resolved, this region will be destabilized and it will never be safe. The international community has to put pressure on the Indians that they need to talk to Pakistan and get this matter resolved, because this is a matter which is going on for the last 64 years and we just can't go on lingering on this issue for the rest of our lives.
So we've looked at it, half our lives.
I know, but I mean now we are coming to the point where because of the developments in the region.
Right. It's a completely, you know,
and
the
particularly
world
Afghanistan. So I think the international community has to give more time to this the Kashmir issue rather than looking into the problems in Afghanistan, because this is a major issue in this region.
Well, it is a major issue certainly for us, but AVM Chaudhary, the problem, the way I see it over here, is that Pakistan has never really been able to present its case properly before the world community in terms of Kashmir, perhaps. What exactly did you make of the Indian Prime Minister's statement that Pakistan should leave Kashmir alone?
I think, let me add to what Beg Sahab just mentioned, in the context of Manmohan Singh's statement. There's already talk going on within the Congress party hierarchy that it's time for a younger leadership to take over. And Manmohan Singh also reflected on the same aspect in this discussion with the editors, which really means that people are talking about what's this name?
Rahul Gandhi.
Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi to take over as the next Prime Minister.
Right.
So he had to save his term. He had to come out to make some popular statement, and I think it ended up being a popular statement. He thought he will recover his lost ground because of this one statement that he's made. Whether he does or not is another matter. The issue here is that Pakistan has actually been much more progressive as far as Kashmir is concerned vis-a-vis India. We've looked at the 4-point formula of Musharraf. We've looked at other options. We've looked at Chenab, option. We've looked at all possible ways as to how to resolve this issue. And it's not a matter of between Pakistan and India alone. It's a matter of, as you mentioned in your initial statement, it's a matter of the Kashmiris. It's a matter of the divided families. It's much more of a humanist problem today than a territorial problem. And as long as India and Pakistan do not really resolve their issues, of which Kashmir continues to be the legacy issue as well as the core issue, unfortunately Pakistan and India will not be able to move forward at the pace that they have the potential to move forward with. So I think those are the areas that a leadership of Manmohan Singh's caliber should be looking at, rather than looking at the fact, remember also the fact that he's made so many other statements in the past in which he has said India is not hesitant to talk about any issue, including the Kashmir issue.
Right.
Kashmir to India is a much bigger problem today than what it is for Pakistan. Remember, it may not be a problem for Pakistan today, but it's as much, in fact, a bigger problem for India, because the Kashmiris uprising of the recent years, because of the intifada that got started,
and it started again,
because of the fact that Kashmir continues to be that sore, blot on the face of India. And India will have to resolve that in case India wants to take that moral position of whatever a regional power or a superpower that it hopes to achieve. So I think those are the areas, that's a baggage that which lies very much within India's baggage also, and therefore they need to resolve that. Pakistan, I think, has moved forward sufficiently. India wants to take on that 4-point, and that's a very strange sort of a statement coming from Manmohan Singh, because in the recent months and almost a year and a half, 2 years, they've been much more keen to begin and resume and resuscitate that the aspect of the 4-point Musharraf formula.
In many ways, Mr. Gul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually found the statement quite insulting. Apart from being a statement on Kashmir, which as both my honoured guests today implied that it's probably more for domestic consumption, it is rather derogatory towards Pakistan. A sort of dismissive, oh, you have your internal problems, stop worrying about Kashmir, deal with your own problems first. A bit of a strange statement coming from the Indian Prime Minister.
Well, I think given Pakistan's current context, I don't find it strange. Our problems today, I think, are very much rooted in our obsession with Kashmir. For too long have we tied our relationship with India and our future, our course of direction with Kashmir, and we haven't been able to solve even the status of FATA in the past 64 years. So what to talk of Kashmir?
Mr. Gul,
let's not be emotional about it.
How can we not be emotional about it, Mr. Gul? Because I look at it not as a Kashmir, because
we have endured a lot of attrition, political, economic, social attrition. This country has gone through a lot of attrition, suffering, just because of this fixation on a policy that I would say has outlived its utility given Pakistan's current context. So what we need to do is to look inward, to look at what we have done to the areas, to the territory that we already have within our territory, rather than looking across the border. And that,
allow me to ask you the point.
So that policy is premised on the suspicion that India will choke our water source, and presuming that our relationship with India will always remain sore, bad. I think that's a wrong premise.
You think that's a wrong premise, but I really, my primary concern, I mean, I also, yes, do not entirely believe that India plays fair when it comes to water, vis-a-vis we've seen Baglihar and various other issues, but leaving all that aside, leaving aside everything else in Kashmir, do you think that we should abandon the Kashmiris themselves?
Well, we are not the sole proprietors of Kashmir or their aspirations. I personally think that Pakistan shall have to review its policies vis-a-vis India, vis-a-vis Kashmir. For too long, I think, has this country suffered because of this fixation on this policy. India has moved on. And it's not that we have to say this, it's the world that acknowledges India as being part of a different league. We are suffering, and the people of Pakistan are suffering, not the army of Pakistan or the establishment of Pakistan. So I think we have to root or embed our analysis of Kashmir, our policy towards Kashmir in the ground realities that we find ourselves in.
I don't know if I'm comfortable advocating giving up Kashmir altogether, Senator Beg, because yes, of course, we all have a vested interest, as Imtiaz very rightly points out, that it's a very emotional issue for us as well. But for me, it's always been an issue of human rights, really. I have witnessed I have met and talked to the victims of Indian brutality in occupied Kashmir. Now, that's not to say that there isn't brutality in Pakistan. Of course there is. I'm not going to deny it. But that is state repression going on there. Should we then just say, okay, you know what? Kashmir has been enough of a liability for us. We don't want to deal with it anymore. Let's deal with our own problems.
No, I think Kashmir is an issue and Kashmir needs to be resolved. How it's resolved, I don't know what's the modalities, but the point is that we just cannot say bye-bye or tata to the Kashmiri people. We know what's happening on the Indian side. Okay, we've got problems on our side, but don't forget one thing, like Imtiaz said, that India moved on and we got stuck, but we got stuck because of these wars in Afghanistan.
Right.
I mean, starting from Ziaul Haq, we got stuck there, and then those guys left. We got the Kalashnikov culture in this country. We got the drug culture in this country. Then in comes another military dictator. And don't forget one thing, that during the 90s, when the PPP was in power, we had invited Rajiv Gandhi, and here she was toppled. The PPP government was toppled. In comes Mr. Nawaz. He gets in Mr. Vajpayee. He gets bumped off. So what I'm trying to say is this, that the political leadership of this country has always gone forward because the elected people have to go back to the people to get votes, and they understand that this is an issue which is consuming 70% of our budget. But so therefore I feel that the political government, and even now, I think we have to sit with India, we have to discuss it, and we have to get this matter resolved.
But are you telling me, that's what I gather from what you said, that it's the military that doesn't want the political governments to move forward with negotiations with India?
I don't know the military policy, but what I'm trying to say is this, that these are the things which has happened. These are realities of the 90s. Now, for example, I mean, like Mr. Nawaz Sharif says, that when he moved forward, Kargil happened. So what I'm trying to say is this, that we have to understand that this problem needs to be resolved, and I think this is the right moment now, because how long are we going to go on with Kashmir? I mean, we've got so many problems. We are in absolutely in a mess as far as our economy is concerned. We've got no money to pay our people. I mean, the people are dying in this country. I mean, we've got law and order issues in this country. So I think it's time that the political leadership, The military leadership, I think they should sit in and I think draw a strategy, like you said in your initial remarks, draw up a foreign policy, particularly that of our region, because that's more important for us, because we've got to live and die in this area.
Technically, the military has no space in foreign policy formulation, AVM Chaudhary, but do you believe that the military was obstructionist when it came to trying to forge peace with India in the 90s, and if so, has that changed now?
Look, I think we need to look at it in a slightly different way. Any nation's foreign policy is dependent upon the capacity, diplomatic capacity that it generates within itself. It depends upon what space you can create within the country and then outside the country. It is correct when Imtiaz Gul says that this is not the time to talk about foreign policy issues in the way that we've been speaking about them in the, let's say, past decades, because of the fact that the Pakistani's position economically as well as in terms of the societal terms is actually fairly degraded at this moment. So when you have a fractured society, when you have a very weak economy, you do not have the diplomatic space to go ahead and do major initiatives outside. You're much more concerned with what is happening inside rather than looking at the outside. So that makes a very good point, and maybe Manmohan Singh was also referring to the same thing. But having said this, is it still possible for India to forget about Kashmir? I mean, in terms of the UNHC resolution, for example, in terms of their own debate that goes on within the country, in terms of the difficulties that they're finding to specify the Kashmiris there, I don't think so. Also the fact that 2/3 of the Indian military continues to be deployed on your borders. Now, one way for the political leadership within Pakistan, for the political leadership within India to actually mitigate the dominant position of the Pakistani military within the Pakistani system would be to try and make the Pakistani military standpoint irrelevant to the Pakistani policy.
Right.
And for that to happen, would it not be a good idea for them to, for example, talk about Kashmir and say, let's resolve Kashmir. The Pakistani military will never have an issue in terms of looking at or being India-centric. So even to look at it
but
from
that's
that,
not in the military's interest.
that is not in the Indian interest also, because as long as Pakistan continues to spend so much on its military in terms of its India centrism, and that is what is keeping Pakistan down, as Senator Beg just said just now. So what I'm trying to say is that even Indians need to look at it in case they have sincerity of the whole region into in their view. They will possibly try and resolve Kashmir, particularly when the Pakistani military is in a much weaker position today within our system. So look at that aspect and say this is a time to go for the Kashmir resolution. Look at it, and it's, no one is saying that, you know, you're talking about all Kashmir going to one side. There have been so many formulas that have come up.
There's so many formulas that have been presented.
And you can continue to talk and discuss, and nothing is going to happen tomorrow. I mean, we begin to talk about it, we begin to create opportunities, we begin to establish that space. It is in Pakistan's interest today not to talk of Kashmir. Many people who still sort of retain,
we're not, really. We haven't been talking about it.
Still retain the old thinking, say this is not the time to talk about Kashmir. Perhaps this is the time to talk about Kashmir, because the Pakistani position is such, and the Indians must, you know, appreciate that, is that they have much greater space to deal with Pakistan in the current
at this
situation.
point. Well, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we return, the crucial issue that remains in place is that Kashmir is not going to go away, and it's not an issue that many Pakistanis would want to see go away. But having said that, who is really talking about Kashmir these days? We talked about the Azad Kashmir elections, but we hardly talked about the Kashmiri people in that. Kashmir has gone off the consciousness of the Pakistani people, beset as we are with so many problems of suicide bombings, the economy, the crises, the war on terror. But when Dr. Manmohan Singh makes a remark to the effect of Pakistan should leave Kashmir alone, then it brings it straight back into the forefront of our consciousness here in Pakistan. But when we return, we will also explore what is going on with the Americans. What exactly does Pakistan need to do on that front? This and more after a short break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Witness. What really lies at the heart of the problems between the United States and Pakistan? Is it the Haqqani network? Is it the residue of Raymond Davis? Is it Dr. Afia Siddiqui incarcerated in America? Is it the fact that Osama bin Laden was found in Pakistani territory? Is it the fact that the Americans continue to pound our tribal areas with drones every alternate day, killing dozens of people? Is it the fact that the Americans seem to have a patronizing attitude towards Pakistan when it comes to prosecuting the war on terror? They seem to think they know better about what Pakistan should do than we do ourselves. Or maybe I'm wrong. Senator Beg, floor is yours. No question.
Katrina, I think there's a lot of mistrust between the US and Pakistan. particularly the armed forces. And I think in the last few years, like Robert Gates mentioned in one of his the hearings of the Senate in the US, that they lie to us and we lie to them. I think it's time to be honest with each other, for the simple reason that today this war on terror, the killings is happening on our land. Our innocent women, children and the citizens of this country are being killed. Our armed forces personnel are being killed. I think we have to sincerely, honestly weed out this menace which is penetrated into our system, and if we don't be honest, I think we'll have to pay a very, very heavy price. I think Washington and Islamabad have to sit on the table and put our cards open, and we have to be absolutely honest with each other, because it's in our interest, because the war on terror or this fight against the Taliban or whatever elements are there, it's on our land.
It's on our land, it's our people, it's affecting our economy.
We've been shattered, we've been doomed by this war on terror. Nobody comes to Pakistan for this killings, what is happening in this country. The bombings and the suicide bombings are taking place. I think we have to be honest and get the hell out these people. Otherwise, I think we will be in great and deep trouble.
This, where is the friction then, A.M. Chaudhary? The way I see it, I mean, stopping the coalition support funds, Pakistan sending American and British trainers back. There have been minor and major irritants that have cropped up despite Secretary Clinton and President Obama singing Pakistan's praises at one level, and then when it comes to the Senate confirmation hearings and Senate hearings and other issues, the Americans are far more aggressive than the American administration. Is the American military and the administration on different pages there?
You know, going back to the point that you just started off with in terms of Pakistan-US's problem and where did it all start off, whatever you mentioned are the consequences of, I think, a very faulty conception. Faulty conception in terms of the relationship between Pakistan and the US. We ourselves assumed it to be a strategic relationship for a political benefit or a political facade or whatever. But I think we were wrong in the sense that when we looked at the fact that Pakistan and US perhaps now have evolved into strategic partnership. That was never the case, has never been the case, and I don't think will ever be the case. Pakistan-US relationship is based upon very simple mathematics, and that is transactional in nature. In terms of the needs of the US as far as Pakistan is concerned, and therefore, you know, you will become relevant at a particular time, and when you're not needed by the US, then you'll become irrelevant, and therefore you'll become the bad boy of the world or bad boy of this region. So as far as that is concerned, I think it should be very clear that our own conception of calling it strategic was entirely incorrect. I think many of us have mentioned this for a long time. It's transactional in nature, and it has continued to be transactional as far as.
It's certainly not an equal relationship.
So it's not an unequal. It's a very unequal relationship, and it could never be strategic in nature in any form and shape. Now, yes, there are two aspects of this relationship which will interest America for some time, which is, of course, your nuclear status in a negative way, and also the fact that you are now bound into an extremist struggle. You know, almost terrorism, in fact terrorism all around. So that is another aspect which is going to bother them in terms of the nexus that can be created between a nuclear capable state which can possibly continue to be in a state of instability for a very long time because of this terrorism factor. So these are the two negatives on which hinge the relationship between Pakistan and the US. Unfortunately, there is nothing positive around which this relationship hinges. And that has been the weakness from the very first day that we got into this relationship with the US. So there are spades of relationship over history that we've gone into. And it has always been for some purpose, for some objective. Now when that has been achieved, so regardless it is Raymond Davis or it is the whatever else that goes on wrong between Pakistan and the US, but the manifestation of it will be in the shape and form that you see today. So I am not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. In fact, the US would have done what is right for it. And in fact,
sure, every nation will act in its own interest.
Its own interest.
That's the way government works.
To go back to the point of honesty, I think the difficulty or the troubles between the Pakistan and the US began the day that Pakistan began to be honest about things. I think the earlier 7 years or 6 years or 8 years, we were trying to play both sides. The moment,
Musharraf years.
the moment you brought up out a straight-faced and an eye-to-eye contact and said, these are our interests, and those interests unfortunately never sort of converged with that of the US. And that is because of the honesty that has now come into the Pakistani policy, which is now becoming a much greater bother for the Americans.
Interesting perspective on things, Mr. Gul. Of course, what is disturbing Pakistan immensely is also the fact that India on the east, Afghanistan on the west, not exactly a friendly situation on the Afghan side either. And so Pakistan is really being squeezed, and then India's opening of consulates has been something that has been annoying Pakistan for a very long time in Afghanistan. But America seems to be drawing away from Pakistan and tilting towards India in terms of Afghan reconstruction. Is that a perception, or is there some truth in that?
Well, I think the Americans have their own calculus for dealing with the situation, and I think India is a very important part of that calculus, and this is what is causing consternation within Pakistan. But I think we also have to be very, very realistic about the entire situation. What the United States wants is acceptance without any reservations. I think one of the very senior State Department officials told us very recently that the Americans want everything done on their terms because it's a superpower. The superpower status basically determines the arrogance,
the level of arrogance,
level of arrogance of the United States of America, and that's why every policy, every dictate, every desire from out of Washington comes across as a dictation. This will keep coming. The challenge is for us how to recalibrate our policy towards the United States. I would say we have been, as somebody said, it's sort of it's derogatory to say, but selling ourselves cheap. That if we have our strategic concerns, for instance, concerning Jalaluddin Haqqani or Mullah Omar, we should put it on table rather than ducking under different excuses. We should have been straightforward in telling them that, look, we will not touch Haqqani, we will not go after Mullah Omar, or
yeah, because these are the guys guys may end up talking to, and
precisely,
they will be our enemies.
And this was a history lesson that we should have basically revived in front of the Americans, that these were your assets as much as our assets. Now they will pose a long-term dilemma,
problem.
Yeah, basically that we cannot confront them, we cannot antagonize them on a permanent basis. So do not force us to attack these guys. This is the problem. I think we haven't been telling this straight to the Americans.
Yeah, we've hidden behind, we don't have the ability, we don't have the capacity, we don't have this, we don't have that. So, but that hasn't worked.
And this is what then causes unrest also within the United States, because the American leaders go back and tell their public, but the public then comes back saying, well, you told us so, but Pakistan is not doing enough, whereas Pakistan has suffered the most.
Yeah.
So somehow we shall have to, I think the civilian and the military leadership shall have to sing in unison what Pakistan's long-term strategic security interests are. Without that,
it's critical, isn't it?
Without that, neither the Americans nor its allies will listen to us. We will still remain isolated, condemned, discredited. Despite, I mean, we're telling the entire world that we have suffered the most, but nobody believes it. Everybody believes what is coming out of Washington or out of London, because I'll give you a very brief.
Care, I think.
No, actually, we have managed our affairs so badly.
Yeah.
To give you a very brief example, Leon Panetta came here within hours of his departure from Islamabad. The Western American media was full of news that Leon Panetta handed to Kayani and to General Pasha damning or incriminating evidence of how the security intelligence gets compromised. We had no version to counter that. Our people in the government or in the military never gave out their version, whether Panetta ever gave them any information at all.
Yeah.
So here we failed.
Here we fail, and we often fail on that front. Remind you once again that for 48 hours after Osama bin Laden was killed and US President Barack Obama announced it on international television, the Pakistan government and the military was missing in action. We can't afford to do things like that anymore in a world where communication, instant communication around the globe is a given. We'll talk more about this, but after a short break, please stay with us. Welcome back to Witness. There's an old joke, or maybe it's reality. Even paranoid people have real enemies. Well, who is our enemy? Do we even know who our enemy is? And is the United States a friend, an enemy, or a frenemy, as we've often talked about? Look at one small example. India supported Pakistan after the traumatic floods last year, offered Pakistan $25 million in assistance, said that they were very saddened by the losses Pakistan had faced, and yet deemed it fit to block Pakistan's access to European Union markets for a year. Market access for 1 year was supposed to help us bridge this terrible gap that we have suffered and lost to our economy because of the floods. India was all sympathy when it came to the floods. When it came to access for Pakistan, India blocked it. So was that a friendly thing to do? Senator Beg, this is the issue, isn't it? Every time you say, yes, that we can talk to India, we can work out our problems, they do something like this.
As Imtiaz was just saying, that our public relationing is very poor. I'm sorry to say. You see, you don't expect anything good out of India. We've got to put our house in order.
We did. We got the 27 EU ambassadors to agree to market access for Pakistani goods.
Why did we fail?
Because India blocked it.
Why?
You tell me, I'm not a diplomat.
It's not primarily because of India, it's also because of the 27 countries, European Union countries. I mean, it's for them to decide whether to allow Pakistan that access or not.
The public relationing we have is absolutely zero. I'm sorry to say this. This is a fact. I mean, there's no people to put any news on the international media. What are our press councillors doing? What are our economic councillors in Brussels doing? What are our ambassadors sitting in Europe doing?
I believe leaving it to the Pakistani media. They've left it to the Pakistani media to deal with the issues.
That after this May 2nd incident, India has gone head on in the world capitals against Pakistan. I mean, saying that, oh, see, OBL was there. We kept on saying. But is there anybody to counter that claim?
No, it doesn't seem like it.
I have not seen any articles in European newspapers or the media or the American media where our embassies have worked hard to counter these allegations. None. So I think the fault lies within. We have to be strong enough to face the international community and particularly our enemies, or whoever they are, maybe even India. The point is this: we've got to put our house in order, we have to improve on our governance, and we have to improve of the standards. Otherwise, I mean, every small nation will start taking Pakistan for a ride. The point is this: look at the amount of sufferings we've had. I mean, my worry today is the economy of this country. I mean, if we are not economically sound, we just cannot put our heads up and talk to the poorest country of the world.
Absolutely.
The point is this: we've got to see that our economy is strong, we've got to see that our people get jobs, the local problems which we have, that's our problem. We have to address these problems, and unless we don't address them, we cannot be strong externally. We have to be strong internally first.
We have to be strong internally first, but Pakistan is described as being number 12 on the failed states index. And it doesn't seem like it's getting better anytime soon.
I think Pakistan may like to begin with appointing a foreign minister first. You know, that's
would
something
really
that might help. You know,
Yep.
so that's the beginning, I think, that we need to make. I agree with Senator Beg that you have to create relevance within and relevance without. You got to be a relevant state to the world. For the moment, Pakistan is unfortunately becoming extremely irrelevant to the world, and in fact a problem. It's not a problem solver. It's becoming a problem by itself.
We are the problem child of the global community.
That's an area that I think our political leadership needs to worry about hell of a lot. And I don't think any sort of a major concern coming out of there. Instead, we're talking about in fighting that's going on between the political parties.
Political parties, as well as this new wave of attacks on the military.
There isn't a consensus that is being developed on anything. There isn't a political vision that exists in this country. So therefore, if you do not have hope, and the people of that country do not have a hope for a good tomorrow, why would the world have any hope or aspirations as far as your own this country is concerned? So I think that's a very major missing link. There's a need for leadership. There's a need for leadership in the political terms. You cannot expect the military to do everything, when there's a big void in terms of the major areas of governance, etc., etc. So that is what weakens Pakistan's stance. You got to be, the other way to look at it is to be more positive. Pakistan may not have that capacity today to be able to stand up and offer solutions, but look at the fact that what can be done in Afghanistan. Now, if the US was interested in really leaving Afghanistan in a much more stable position, perhaps Pakistan would be a partner and would not be a problem within their assessments. If India was to look at Pakistan and try and make it move towards a more positive direction, India would try and resolve difficulties with Pakistan today, rather than creating more difficulties for Pakistan, whether those happen to be in the GSP plus area or the
right. So the fault
it
lies within. I'm running out of time, so I just quickly want to get Imtiaz to comment on that. Can Pakistan reverse this, Mr. Gul?
I think given political vision and sincerity, a lot of things can be reversed, if not all. For that, we need sincere and able leadership, which we don't have at the moment.
And because Air Vice Marshal made an interesting remark, you can't expect the military to do everything, yet the political leadership privately says the military interferes in everything. Where's the truth?
Well, I don't think we should buy that any longer. I think there have been many instances in which the political leadership had the say, had the authority, and had the moment on their side to act, but they never did. So it's like you can't keep passing the buck and also keep enjoying the privileges that they are right now. So I think
I'll have to
we have to handle Balochistan.
So many issues.
First, we have to handle Fatah first before we talk of Kashmir.
All right, we'll leave it there. I'd like to thank my guests, Senator retired Mohammad Anwar Beg, Air Vice Marshal retired Shahzad Chaudhry, and Imtiaz Gul. Thank you so much for having joined me on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, the ultimate test of any nation is how it faces adversity. And in times of adversity, Pakistan has always risen to the occasion. When we are faced with any kind of crisis, be it floods or an earthquake or the IDP crisis, but for how long? The people of Pakistan elect governments to take care of those problems with us so they can get on with living their lives. At this point in Pakistan, it's a sad tragedy that most people spend the bulk of their earnings on food. Nothing left for education and health, let alone entertainment, happiness and joy. So this country is mired under poverty, and every issue, every problem can be traced back to the fact that the political leadership of this country has seriously been found wanting. Katrina Hussain saying Khuda Hafiz from Islamabad.